Today marks 2 years since the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, a ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade. Valley News Live's Washington correspondent Ryan Henson spoke with people on both sides of the abortion access debate about where the fight is 2 years later.
The fight is still very much ongoing.
Being here is really saying to America, we're not going away.
Opposite sides of the abortion access debate with similar messages for their supporters. For the past 2 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, abortion access laws are now in the hands of the states. The White House Gender Policy Council says that means some states are pushing for more restrictions.
There's 21 states with an abortion ban currently in effect. Those numbers continue to change.
Anti-abortion rights advocates gather on the National Mall to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision. They say they're looking forward to more legal wins in the future.
What we're really doing is calling on lawmakers to protect life at every level, at the state level, at the federal level. We recognize that the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade only went so far. It put the decision of abortion back in the hands of the people.
Lauren Musica's group, Sidewalk Advocates for Life, goes outside of abortion clinics to try and convince women to choose an alternative to an abortion. GOP Congressman Bob Good of Virginia is one of the Republicans answering the call.
That the Constitution does not guarantee the right to abortion, but enables the people's representatives to stand up for life and to protect it in the womb. Now it's incumbent upon us legislators.
This anniversary of the Dobbs decision comes as the Supreme Court is set to release another major opinion. Moyle v. United States will determine whether state law overrules federal regulations that guarantee a right to life-saving care, which can include abortions.
I think there's really a misunderstanding out there that if we protect life at conception, that somehow mothers are not going to get miscarriage management care, that they're not going to get treatment for ectopic pregnancy, and that's absolutely not true, and I can say that as an attorney.
Federal law preempts state abortion bans that prevent doctors from providing life and health-saving care to women who come into the emergency room when their doctor recommends that they need an abortion to save their health or their life.
Now, a decision in Moyle versus United States is expected by this Friday. Well, changing gears, the Dolly, the cargo ship that lost control and caused Baltimore's Key Bridge to collapse, is on the move. It left a Baltimore port this morning, heading to Norfolk, Virginia to undergo repairs. Meanwhile, 8 crew members are set to go back to their home countries after a deal was reached that ensures they will be made available for interviews concerning the city's lawsuit against the ship's owner that claimed negligence led to the bridge collapse. 6 workers were killed when the Dolly lost power and slammed the Key Bridge, causing it to collapse into that river. Well, coming up on your news at 4, as the cost of living grows, more and more people are turning to side hustles to supplement their income. We'll have tips to make that side job work for you.